Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the UCLA Insider Podcast. My name is Luke Joseph, and today we're going to be talking about Weston Porton and Jackson Hill decommitting from the UCLA football program. And before we get into that, be sure to like and subscribe. Be sure to share this with all your friends and family. It really help us all on SI a whole lot. The more you share, the more you like and subscribe, the more it does for us. So thank you, and let's get into it. So first, let's talk about Jackson Hill. This one was a real gut punch. He in-state kid, committed just a month ago, back in April, and he was the only offensive tackle who was committed to UCLA. I know they have two offensive linemen uh, in the 2027 class, but they were both offensive guards. You know, Hill is a pure offensive tackle, and he might have slid into guard, but he was going to be an offensive tackle. That's where his main position has been. And now we're back to square one in terms of getting offensive tackle. We still need some for the 2027 recruiting class. Hill was he is a California native. Plays high school at Chaminade High School. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But he was one of the top tackles out of California, and he was a UCLA kid. Like he loved UCLA. He Once he got that offer, he committed, and it seemed like a really really good relationship. He got along great with the coaching staff and Bob Chesney, who's the new head coach, came in over from James Madison, and Bob Chesney's starting to rebuild that UCLA name, that UCLA brand of football. And Hill was someone who he could have turned into a star, but he was gonna be a starter. I wholeheartedly believe. When maybe not as a freshman, maybe not even as a sophomore, but over time, definitely by his junior year, he was definitely going to see starting minutes. He could have seen starting minutes as a sophomore. Um, I think he is a very underrated prospect. I know he's only ranked as a 3-star, but once you get on campus, stars don't matter anymore. You're a 0-star. You got to come in with that 0-star mentality. But losing him, he flipped his commitment to Notre Dame, and it seemed as though it was a really tough decision for him. Um, and he said in a statement when he spoke to Rivals about his decision to flip, he said, and I quote, "Notre Dame is the only school I would have flipped from UCLA for. It was a hard decision because I really love UCLA and the coaching staff. It was so hard to tell Coach Hill and Coach Chesney that I was making the change and going somewhere else." Yeah, that speaks volumes for this new coaching staff and Bob Chesney. The fact that they've already started to, kind of have good relationships. I know they've been on the job for a few months, but you know, given this new climate of college football, I think that only having a few months and already having great relationships with players in the 2027 class, let alone the 2026 recruiting class, that's that speaks highly of Chesney, and I think he's the right man for the job. I think he took James Madison to the college football playoff. So I know they were no match for Oregon, but getting James Madison to the playoff, that's pretty impressive. So, but it seems like there's no love lost, and it still seems like that Hill still really respects and still believes that UCLA under Bob Chesney is gonna be a really good program. He also stated in while speaking to rivals, I have so much respect for those guys, and I have no doubt they're going to win. Coach Chesney is going to turn that program around. It would be fun to be a part of that. It would have been fun to be a part of that, excuse me. But I had to make this move, and I really feel it's the best thing for me for what my goals are. Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think it's just, it just stinks. But at the end of the day, it's his decision. Um, and whatever decision he makes, I think we, as we just have to respect that. But and then I want to also talk about what's important. He was someone who also decommitted, but what's interesting about him is he was part of the 2025 recruiting class. And you might be saying, Luke, what do you mean? He was on the roster? It's like, no, he wasn't on the roster. He was actually all the way in Spain. He was on an LDS mission, um, and so he was on an LDS mission for 2 years, and he's not coming back for another 6.5 months. So he would have been back in January of 2027, and if my math is correct. And this one was not this one isn't as big. Obviously you don't want to ever see people decommitting from your program because you want to keep everyone, but this one might not have as big of an impact, whereas Hill might have a little bit more of an impact. Or Yeah, Hill. What am I talking about? Um, so Weston Port, he was a linebacker, um, and in this recruiting class, we're already kind of set at linebacker. Like we have three commitments already. We have Mike Davis Jr. and Kane Brackney, who are 3 stars. They're both very talented, but they also it might be hard for them to see getting playing time as a freshman. Um, Brackney is from Oklahoma, and Davis Jr. is from the state of California. But we also have Colton McKibben. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that name, but he's the top rated player coming out of New Mexico. And to get someone like McKibben already committed, hopefully he signs um, with UCLA. It's still I mean, we're talking about 2027. And, we haven't even gotten to the 2026 season yet. And I'm still very excited for that season under Bob Chesney, and I hope that goes well. But that just speaks to how well he's done recruiting 2027 high school kids. Um, he's got the fifth ranked class according to 24/7 Sports, and the 11th ranked class according to Rivals. Like, I don't think UCLA has had a top 2025 class since 2018 with Chip Kelly. Like, that's just impressive to me. And losing both players sucks, but at the end of the day, it's their decision, and we just have to respect that. Port also released a statement regarding his decision. He said on social media, on Twitter, after careful thought and conversation with my family, I've decided to reopen my recruitment and find the right program to continue my football career. Port wrote, I have a lot of respect for the coaches and players at UCLA, and I wish Coach Chesney, his staff, and the program nothing but success moving forward. I have 6.5 months left on my mission in Spain, and cannot wait to enroll in January after I return. Yeah, Port. He is someone who's described by Greg Biggins of 24/7. He's a tough physical kid. He's also strong against the run, and is a very instinctive player. That's very much a Bob Chesney caliber of player, um, or the type of player that he looks for. Um, and so, kind of just seeing that, he decides to decommit. I think he wanted a place where he might be able to find playing time. I just said that he's the exact kind of player that Chesney looks for, but it's the fact that he's already kind of he's already 2 years older than the 2027 class. It might have been a little bit hard for him to find playing time, but as well, I guess maybe not. Who knows? But either way, it's his decision. Don't listen to me. Um, yeah, that's pretty much it. Um, and I also want to talk about the overall recruiting class. The fact that this class, as I mentioned before, is number 5 in 24/7 and number 11. Bob Chesney is building something special here. Now, do I think he's gonna bring get UCLA to a bowl game? I know they got Nico still in the building. He's still really talented. He was a 5-star coming out of the 2023 recruiting class. They got some pieces there. They got some good pieces. I think they can make a bowl game. I think they can. Um, it's they might not have a winning record. They might go 6-6, but they might go 5-7. But I think this year is going to be a lot more fun to watch versus the last 2 years, where it just seemed as though UCLA was just kind of in a mess, recruiting wise, and just overall play on the field. um, Boy, some of those games just were not fun to watch. But Coach Chesney is just bringing in some of his guys from James Madison. Kind of like what Kurt Signetti did when he came over from James Madison, and look at how that turned out. He won a championship at Indiana 2 years ago, or 2 years in his second year at Indiana. Who would have thought of that? So, but I'm not. No one should be sitting here saying that Bob Chesney is going to win a championship in his second year. I don't think anyone is crazy enough to say that. But I think that he can bring this team to a 6-6 record, get to a bowl game. But overall, even if he doesn't, I think it's just the fact that he's kind of rebuilding the brand of UCLA football. And I think that's kind of the most important thing when bringing in a new head coach, for me at least. Um, I went to Michigan State and they got their own problems. They got Patrick Fitzgerald after they just fired Jonathan Smith, who just didn't fit the Big Ten. And now Pat Fitzgerald, he's a former Northwestern coach, and he's trying to rebuild that culture. And so I think that's what Chesney needs to focus on. I think he just needs to just kind of build that foundation, and then you build upon that. It's you don't build a house from the outside to the inside. You build it from inside out, and that's what you have to do with a football program. You got to treat it like a house. Build it from the inside and out. Build that foundation, and then you can start to accessorize with the TVs and all that stuff. So I think he's going to do a really good job with that. He could go 5-7, but if the team still is looking a lot better, competing, not getting blown out every game, I think the future is very bright. But that's all I have for you today. Um, it was fun to talk to you guys. My name is Luke Joseph, and have a good rest of your day.